Okay, so welcome. This is the meeting of the Woodstock Economic Development Commission, meeting on September 6th at 7 p.m. Call this meeting to order. By way of introduction, my name is Charlie Kimball, one of the new co-chairs, and sitting next to me is Julia Cook, our other co-chair. So we are scheduled for an hour and a half, and hopefully we'll be very speedy in our deliberations. But before we get going, we have a new member to the Economic Development Commission, Mr. John Spector, who is filling the expired or vacated position of Tom Weschler. So John, welcome to the board. If you want to just tell people who you are and why you want to do something like this, or you were already appointed by the select board.
Right, exactly. We've had a house in Woodstock since '99 and moved here full time when our kids went off to college in 2014, so we've been here for 4 years. The last decade or so, a little bit more, I've been the CEO of an organization called the Conference Board, which is a think tank in New York. I still work there. I've just stepped down as CEO. I still work there part-time for a couple of years. But I have more time to devote now to the community. I haven't really done, other than being a resident and paying a lot of taxes.
Thank you.
I haven't really made any contributions to the community, so this is sort of my first thing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the group. It's an auspicious group.
Thanks. Yes, I know that.
So we have survived many controversies. With that, we move on to our next agenda item, which is citizen comments. And I know that we have a community visioning project as one of the opening moments of that. Sally, I know you are the bottom signatory on the RFP. Commissioners, you were mailed by email a PDF of the visioning project today. And so this is really an introduction to it. I don't think we're expected to take action on it today because we haven't had time as a commission to fully review it, but let's just hear about what the project is. Who's going to be presenting?
Geraldine.
Wait, would you like me?
Geraldine Fowler. Hi, Geraldine.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Where would you like me?
So we have a camera, so let's see. Why don't you sit in that chair, and then Macy can pan over right there. I was thinking the chair. Well, that's good. That's good. We can be flexible. I got it.
All right, so I'm Geraldine Fowler. I am a Woodstock resident and on the Woodstock Community Visioning Steering Committee. And we prepared the request for proposal, which was submitted to you, and I just have a couple of statements. So this idea was started over a year ago because several community organizations were talking about doing their own visioning process. They decided it would be better to have one conversation, and there's been a lot of interest in having that happen. We had 2 meetings last spring, which had over 30 people attend. Paul Casello from the Vermont Council of Rural Development helped guide one of those meetings, and we do have minutes from that meeting if you'd like to see them. The steering committee has talked with 4 potential facilitators. They all have different approaches, so we decided to write the RFP to encourage them to submit their own ideas. For instance, one likes to do a series of small meetings, and another one suggests one large community meeting. The intent was that the $30,000 will include some preliminary work in the community as well as some follow-up after the event. We hope that they will do the legwork and organizing of it or hire a local person to do that. We are asking the EDC to fund it outside of the grant cycle because we feel that it's really a community project as no one organization is promoting it directly. There is already considerable buy-in, so we really feel it will be a successful endeavor. We think that this is a good use of EDC money because it is such a broad support and something that is needed. That's my statement.
Okay. Thank you. And, hopefully with citizen comments for us, it may be different than in the past. We hope to get the information in, and we've got an organizational structure set up to actually consider it and give it due diligence, and then to really come back to you with questions and take it before the right process. So citizen comments often for us becomes almost a debate, and we're hoping that it's more, we're just listening.
Okay.
But this actually enters it into the process so that we can, with this, Sally had notified us that we'd be looking at it. So, but with that, I mean, in terms of getting more information about this proposal, you have received it by email. Have people had a chance to read it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So that was my main concern, is did we have a chance to thoroughly read it? And Julia, what's your thought on the resource or committee actually taking a look at this?
We can happily take a look at it.
Yeah, okay.
My only question right now would be, what is our timeline? Like, what kind of, I like the idea of not having a back and forth
Yeah.
now. I don't think we're prepared to.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that citizen comments is not the time to do that necessarily, but I'm wondering what should we.
Well, it seems that, I mean, there's a group that's put this together. It's not an official group necessarily representing a 501c3 or anything else. It's not an official request of the town, right?
No.
So it's just a request from a group of citizens saying we want to go through this process, right? So it's a $30,000 request, which is pretty big.
Wow.
For us. So it really jumps to the head of the line in terms of our next round of grant financing is what, September 28th is the due date for that? So can we consider it in the next month and then come back with a proposal for the EDC at our next meeting? Is that possible? What's your time frame like?
We were hoping to host the big event in the late winter, early spring.
Okay, so that gives us a little time then.
Well, we'd need to do the process beforehand, which I think is about 3 to 4 months. Yeah, so we were hoping that we would get the RFPs back by the October sometime, September, October. We had suggested that we'd want it back September 30th. But
Yeah, but that was, I
that.
think that was trying to get it out before the next granting cycle, because there
Right.
is a RFP process, and in order to get 3 or 4 months of prep work for the visioning process itself, and thinking that March or April was the best time of year to do it. So that's sort of how it backed up to.
Why would March or April be the best? What was the thinking behind that?
That was just in discussions with various people.
Yeah, I think the point is that I have a lot of questions that probably
Yeah.
can't be answered, or
Right.
that I can't compose right now,
Right.
and probably would take up more time than is appropriate to answer. So
I guess the main thing right now then is should this be submitted as a grant? It's not really a grant, and then, which is why I recommended that they come directly to you and ask for funding outside of the granting cycle. It's more like our housing study.
Yeah, and it could be, and obviously your name is on it.
Yeah, and I've been part of the conversations.
And it makes sense then to really be considered by the resource committee and then referred up to the full EDC so that we can have a full sense of that. And if it doesn't make it too late to actually bring it back to our next EDC meeting the first week of October, which is October 4th, I believe, right? Is our next meeting.
Yeah.
And then that makes it for the select board decision on the $30,000. The next select board meeting in October would be the third Tuesday?
16th,
The 16th.
which means the RFPs are going out, right after that, which means they'll be due in the beginning of November. In theory, we get into holiday season, That's the real problem.
Right, so you have to have it before November, or
Yeah.
before Thanksgiving
Yeah.
is when you want it, right? So it seems like there's a long enough time frame.
Yeah, what's the money for? I mean, I don't,
Wait.
citizen
I
comments.
think-
Yeah.
Just to get that sense of.
So we have a 3-page proposal that's emailed, so we really need to give it
Yeah.
full review. I
Oh.
mean, and then get it to the resource committee to actually thoroughly vet it. And then we can, in that process, go through all the real questions about it. I mean, I have a lot of questions on it too. Yeah,
Right.
I think we all would.
But the question I'm just going to say again is would it be possible to have a decision by the next meeting? So that this group, which has been working and talking to various people, can keep moving.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the Economic Resources Committee can certainly have a meeting, ask the questions that we would ask,
Right.
and come back to the EDC with our recommendation by
Yes.
the next meeting.
yeah.
I just don't know why why must it be done in March or April?
Partly because we've been talking about this for over a year now.
Totally, and I'm with you on the making it speedy, but March or April versus May.
May is a tough time. May and
Yeah.
June are very tough times.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're very busy.
We looked at the schedule
whom?
and what was happening in the summer and the fall.
Community.
Yeah.
Community.
Between graduations and, I mean, special events tend to happen in May and June. Those are very booked months. I know this from experience working in.
And that activity will have an effect on this?
Yeah.
I just don't know if we rush it further, faster than that. I think it bears consideration from our group.
It's a
so
lot of money to be rushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can
Yeah.
do that with the,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought we had been talking about this for a while, and people knew about it, but I guess I was mistaken.
Totally. I just knew that I looked this over. I didn't have a chance to read this as detailed as I might have, but I spent 5 minutes with it. And I have questions about what the sum of money seems high for. Like, there's not a lot of detail about what that sum of money is given. Like, I want to know where that money is specifically going
Right.
and why it's not $10,000.
Right.
So.
I think we were asking for up to 30,000, and in the RFP, they would
Right.
detail how much they would be charging and how much.
Got it.
But in our conversations, talking through it, they had said, similar projects had been up to 25, 30,000.
Okay,
um,
all right.
But
So
without the
I'm assuming
details.
the next meeting we'll get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, I think we can come up with it, like Barry and I we can all schedule a meeting with Sally and Barry and Luke, and we can get into it and come back with a recommendation. Yep, certainly.
That's awesome.
Totally.
Great. Thank you very much, Geraldine. Okay, we have other citizen comments. Are there any other citizen comments? Seeing none, we would move on to our next order of business. Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes. You also received by email the minutes from our August 2nd meeting. They have been posted to the town website. They were posted to the town website within 5 days of the actual meeting being held, which is in conformance with the public meeting laws in the state of Vermont. So I hope you've had a chance to read those. At this point, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Courtney seconds.
Right. Is there any discussion, amendments, deletions to the minutes? I only had one typo, which I've already passed on to Sally in terms of Joe talking about realtors, not relators. So that's
There we go.
yep.
Could I ask a question, just because I wasn't at this last meeting? There, under the website, there are sort of general comments about trends. Is there ever, maybe quarterly or annually or something, some underlying numbers which talk about them, the standard metrics, or was that presented and just not in the minutes, or is it?
There have been reports, and I know Courtney will probably talk about the actual
Yeah, I can
metrics
get
of
into
the
that
website
on the
today.
website
fine.
committee.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Minutes are accepted. Next order on the agenda is our financial report, also in your email today. And
I don't know
for,
if that one was.
oh,
I think I sent that to you.
I misspoke.
So
For
there's a handout
distribution here,
And that is, what that is the actual municipal report that just shows revenues for the last, well, since the start of the EDC and their accounting. So we finally, in mid-August, have the June numbers. So we know the year end. She splits the August payment between 2017-18 and 18-19, so that's why those numbers get a little weird. It looks like our revenues are going up, they went up about 6% from the previous year,
for the quarter or for the overall?
for the
calendar?
overall year, so we now can look at the entire year. And those are the only numbers I have for this meeting. Everything else is just going fairly smoothly.
Can I ask a question? This money kept like with the rest of the town funds? Or was it stored?
That's a good question. I don't know if it is a segregated account. It is by a vote of the town,
Yeah.
purposely kept separate for accounting purposes, but I don't know if it's a separate bank account.
Oh, okay.
Would you happen to know the answer to that?
I'd assume it is because there's interest being paid
Well, yeah, but that
And-
number hasn't changed.
and if it was lumped in with everything else, they couldn't identify, right, interest just for this.
That is a reasonable question. Where are actual funds held and who's getting the interest? Yeah. Thank you. We can follow up on that for next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, and there's, so that's the financial report. Generally, financial reports don't actually have to be accepted, but it is the financial report. But the question
Yeah,
is,
I don't think this one was more just a report. I mean, I have not updated our budget or done anything else. So you can do
May
that.
I ask about the accounts to close?
Yes, that's the next.
that's
Oh,
the
sorry.
next item on the agenda. Exactly.
Nice.
So Sally has proposed, or gone through, and you would see in her report that we have submitted as well, that she did contact each one of these grant recipients about the status of the grants. Last month, it was commented that she would contact the grant recipients and find out, have they fully used the funds? Is it the project dead? What's going on with them? So, Sally?
Well, as I mentioned in my notes, obviously, the Bluff Island music, he said he's done. It's not, he may come back with a different project, but for now, he said to close out the account. The welcome signs, I was never able to get in hold of Gail, if anybody knows her, but I assume that's sort of an EDC project. that you
Project
guys-
is complete.
Project is complete, and then Rachel Shields in the pop-up co-working, she has finished that one as well. So those were the only three. I talked to the Wamba folks and made a note in there that they ran into some Act 250 problems, so it delayed the project, but they will still want those funds. So those were the four
So my
that were.
question to that, Sally, is the money that's left over hasn't been used, that was allocated and not used, the recipients just writing a check for the balance and giving it back?
No,
Or what are they doing?
They don't
They didn't
get the
receive it.
funds. So
Oh.
we pay funds when people submit invoices
Yeah.
to be paid. So they haven't been, those funds have not been dispersed at all.
Okay.
So those are funds sitting in the accounts.
But they do represent an encumbrance on the balance in the account, so it means we can't redisperse it. They're committed now, so I would entertain a motion to actually consider those as now, again, available
Yes.
for use by the
So moved.
EDC.
Second.
All right, it is moved and seconded to reallocate those. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes seem to carry. I do have it. Okay. Thank you for that follow-up. Work on that. Okay. Well, that's quick. We're moving right ahead. The chairman report, your co-chairs have met and discussed that we would like to keep our chairperson's comments to a very small amount of words. Thank you.
These are small words instead of big words.
No, really in terms of just what we have here is that Julie and I, as co-chairs, would like to actually alternate as to who's running the meeting. So I'm running the meeting this month, and then next month Julie will be running the meeting, and then we'll switch back and forth. I mean, we have conversations outside of the meeting as to what's going on and who needs help, who doesn't need help, that kind of stuff. But in terms of a general report, we don't really have a report for you as much as the work of the committees, which is where the bulk of our work is being done, and by our coordinator. So that's really what we hope to do in the future, is just kind of say, hey, what's going on, guys? Because it's the real role of the committees more than us.
Let's all get on the
Well,
same page.
that having been said, let's move on.
Done. That was, say, 5 minutes there. Coordinator report?
And I have submitted my report. I don't really have anything else to add to it. One thing I will circulate is a thank you note from Bookstock. Just really the front page is all you need to look at, just their thank you.
It's just one copy.
Just one copy, so I'm trying not to send you guys too much information. There's always that fine line between too much and too little, so just let me know if it gets to be overwhelming or if you feel like you're missing something. My coordinator's report will now be attached to the agenda that gets posted to the town website. It means I have to get it done a little bit earlier than I'm the last minute person, but that's the goal. So it will always be available for town residents to find it before the meeting and take a look at it. And that's about all I have to say.
Are there any questions on the coordinator report? Because I was reading through it and I thought, oh, we don't even have to have a meeting. It's all right here. Yeah. No.
We got some fun stuff coming.
Okay. Thank you, Sally. And general EDC updates. This is where we get into the meat of what we're working on. Not that the other is diminished in any way. But our first from the committee is on promotion and website. So Courtney, you've had a busy month.
Yes. Let me give you a little.
Could you please give us an update on what's going on with WoodstockVT.com?
We did have a meeting. Some of that was just discussing our content, ongoing work on the site with Katie, writing blogs. One of the tasks last time we met was about the newsletter sign up and making sure we had a newsletter that went out with the sign up. So how we're formulating that is being put together. I can't report on all of that. Some of that's going to be like, if you missed our last blog, you get, here it is again to go back to it, and then other events, upcoming events going on and so forth. We did talk about the calendar and trying to improve the calendar. Part of that was also discussing Vermont Standards calendar, which they'd love for everybody to use. And so we are investigating if that could be, if we wanted to, be integrated into the website without being just a link to for Vermont Standards site. So we do have somebody tasked with looking into that. Let's see, what else? We still don't have somebody who can do sales for advertising. So that was a task that Tom had taken on, and every time we got to a place where we thought we had somebody, then they kind of stepped away from it. So,
Bummer.
yeah, it's something that takes a little bit of time, but we have to look at how we make it lucrative for somebody. I have to check in with Tom because there was some aspect of the relationship with Vermont Standard that was a possibility that they would take on sales of it, but I guess I'll have to investigate that now. I agreed that I would follow up with Phil and team and see, that would be Phil Camp, and see if that's a reality and something that could work for us. But we have sold quite a bit. It's just about rounding it out, and we're also trying to put together inventory of, so we know what's available versus what was sold, so we know what we can push out there. Invoicing is still another thing that we're trying to figure out how we do that. The invoicing may just have to come from the web committee itself for now, because we can't, we understand that we don't want to put the town don't want to make town involved doing invoicing. They just don't have the capability apparently. So that should be on our next meeting, which I think is in 2 weeks. So there's quite a few things we have to figure out, but the good thing is that we keep building the content, we keep adding stuff. There's always a lot to do. And then the bigger discussion, which we've all talked about, was, actually before I say that, there is an accounts payable out there that we have to take care of, which is the second half of the 6-month maintenance fee, which was approved. We just need to get that paid. So I think, Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, we just have to ask that money to be...
Well, they have to submit an invoice.
They have to submit
submit
it.
the
Once we
invoice.
get the invoice, we throw it in.
I
money comes
give
back
it to the
and
town,
paid.
yes.
Sorry,
Okay.
did I?
This is Origin,
Yes, this is Origin.
and this is for the
maintenance
6 months that's just
agreement.
ended?
Correct.
Is that
Okay, so-
$15,000?
So the agreement was, we paid half in the beginning and half at the end of the 6 months. That was Tom's agreement that he made with Origins.
Okay, so this is not going forward. This is for what we've already been
This
through
is
and the
what we've
select
already
board
been
already
through,
approved.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we did talk about the contract going forward, and I think what we would like to do is look at, there are a lot of enhancements we want to make, and good ones. So is to try to do less maintenance and a little bit more enhancement fee with Origin get us through the year, get those things updated, because you always have to live with the site in the beginning to really see some of the things that you want to update and change, and so have the actual developer of our site change it, and then after a full year to relook at, you know, should we have somebody else contracted to do general maintenance from here on out, or continue on with Origins. And that was our recommendation.
What the recommendation was?
The recommendation was that we seek a 6-month agreement with Origins that will involve some maintenance as well as enhancement hours. So maintenance is a general ongoing maintenance of the site, and then the enhancement hours are for making changes to the site. So this is very much adding something that doesn't exist today on the site, and that is a architectural piece of the site.
6 months starting when, course.
As soon as we sign the contract.
So what?
Yeah, we have a couple different proposals that I gotta make
So
sure.
we're just,
Well,
what
and
was just
maintenance
previous.
includes what, is what I've never been clear on, because it's a hefty fee. So
Yeah.
I just want to I want to know.
What is the fee? I didn't hear. So,
It's like $12,000, I think.
It's $1,000.
It's $1,000 a month,
Yeah.
general maintenance. Let me see if I have a definition, general maintenance. This is general maintenance agreement.
So Courtney, do you actually have a proposal from them from?
No, I gotta get
which we
this,
have to act?
no, we have to
No.
update this, so I don't have something today to present.
Okay.
So, but I will get something.
Yeah. So
Yep.
for the next meeting, and I'm
Yep.
planning on coming to the
Yeah,
next website meeting.
Yep.
So I'll be excited to hear more about that at that
sure.
meeting. But
Yeah, and the maintenance thing, I think we can reduce that fee, but we do want the enhancement hours because there's now a laundry list of things we want to update. And that's pretty typical. Every site I've ever done, I end up with a variety of things.
Let me understand. So the invoice that is being waited on, that will be paid as soon as it's submitted.
That ends that contract.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what you're talking about is
A renewal.
a renewal of that contract. When does that start? The first year?
It starts when we commence. Right now, we don't.
When is this
We don't
one
have
end?
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't have one yet.
We don't have one, so we got to resolve this pretty quickly.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
So if something broke with the site right now,
Right now, we're on if something we're on, we'd have to pay an hourly fee for them to work with it.
yep,
So,
okay.
yep.
So without a retainer,
Yeah,
essentially, you're
correct.
paying per hour.
Yep. Right,
yeah, I just want to know what the
Yeah.
retainer, what's involved in the retainer.
right. Yep,
Yeah.
I can give that to you.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all right, because we had discussed what that looks like in terms of an annual basis, what the
Mhm.
supplemental funding would be from the EDC to the WoodstockVT.com,
Yep.
what's necessary. So
Right.
hopefully with that, we'll be able to act on that with that full knowledge of what that expense is, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So for next meeting, then we're thinking we'll have a clear.
Yeah, well, I'm
picture.
gonna get information over it to
Okay,
the commission before that meeting, so everybody has that.
that's great, because it would be great to be able to go back
Yeah.
to the select board too and to be able to say, this is the nut that we're responsible for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me think, what else do we have on here?
So tell us about performance.
I didn't go on any numbers.
Okay.
We went over that last meeting.
Yep.
And they were good and strong. I don't deem it necessary to go over that every single month. But if the commission prefers to, we can definitely do that. But I think quarterly, if we review that, that's good. The numbers were very good as we looked at them last month, so.
Okay.
Sorry, it's been a long day. Trying to think it all through. Sally, did I miss
Yeah,
anything?
Katie Vernon, who's our digital media coordinator, actually submits monthly reports, and they're always going up, so they're looking good.
Yeah. Also, photography. We talked about photography, more diversity in people in our photography around town and different other shots that we just don't have. So there's been a couple of options thrown out there. Some photography that would be donated to the site, as well as our potential marketing plan that we have for a budget that we want to put forth for June. Not really sure when we're going to try to put that toward the select board. So that's a question.
Perhaps at our next meeting, we could have some numbers
Okay.
fleshed out for allocation for that. That'd be
What's
great.
is there a particular deadline for that?
I think it's the finer we can tune the instruments, the
Yeah.
more beautiful the music will be.
I think we put a pretty solid budget together. I think we can put.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I think
Did you get all of that, Sal?
Yeah.
maybe more so. I think we put some more meat to it before we go in. I think I kind of have a pretty good idea what that is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That'd be great.
That's all I have for the web committee.
Any other questions for Courtney? Thank you. The next is our Economic Resources Committee.
Yes.
Bless you.
Excuse me. All right, so we've got Rainbow Play School.
Well, that was my mistake.
Huh?
So, I mean, in the beginning of her letter, she says she thanks the EDC for granting them, and I thought I had worded it properly, and obviously I didn't, so.
So basically, no, there's,
Well-
it's not a problem because we, the Economic Resources Subcommittee, which is Barry and me, Sally and Lucas, have looked at the Rainbow Play School's proposal, and we are recommending an approval of $50,000 toward their expansion, which is really exciting. It represents 15% of their total budget. 20% of their first phase budget. We looked at their costs. That money will be mostly directed toward renovations and permitting to get them past the first phase such that it can stay on target for timeline purposes as they continue fundraising with other private donors. So that is our recommendation after looking at Rainbow Play School's information, some of which I believe Sally sent out to the whole group.
Well, I sent the letter that they have submitted.
Yeah, which outlines what they're
doing.
spending the money on.
So that's the report of the Economic Resource Committee. Is that in the form of a motion then?
Can I ask a question on it or no?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there'll be plenty of time
Yeah,
for
yeah.
discussion. I guess it's a formal recommendation from the Resource Committee
That's
to,
our recommendation.
for this meeting for $50,000. Okay. That's the recommendation. So would you put that in the, is that a motion to approve the
Is
$50,000?
that how this works?
That would be, yeah. that'd be
Yeah,
good.
so we are making a motion to approve $50,000 for the Rainbow Play School's expansion.
Okay, so that is the.
Second.
And a second. Okay, now we go into discussion where we can ask all sorts of questions. Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a question or a statement. I think the project has merit. However, I asked myself the question, and I'll pose the same question to the commission, is what is more likely to draw visitors on a more consistent basis into our town? What is more likely to add permanent residents to our town? A vibrant, healthy commercial district, or a place, or a,
You'll hear that in my next comment after
or a
Rainbow
day,
Play
or a
School.
daycare center? Which would achieve our goals as a commission?
Okay,
We're
question
hoping
asked.
to address both, and the next item on the agenda is our storefront incentives, which we are also asking for funds to be made available in the event that they're applied for. We have no applicants as of yet, but we are hoping to get a formal incentive program out, get the word out in the community that we are willing to pay 2 months' rent for any new business that is opening, a new business, not an existing business that's moving. But I have a whole list of parameters that I'm happy to go into next. But please rest assured that we are also very seriously considering the vibrant downtown. It's
But you
not
want us to
either-
approve $50,000 tonight?
Right.
I don't know if I can do that right yet. I don't have enough information, so.
So let's come back to that. The question is the economic value of an expanded childcare services. So I think the premise that the commission charged the Economic Resource Committee with looking at is this a worthy expenditure of funds? Is there a need? Is there a need that is currently unmet in the community to help families actually locate and live here in the community? And I think that's what the Economic Resource Committee wrestled with.
That's what we wrestled with. We met with Tesha. They have a long waiting list. I can say, anecdotally speaking, being the person probably on this commission who knows the most people with 2-year-olds, right?
A lot that worked for me.
I know anecdotally that it is hard. They are the only game in town, and they are hard to get into, and that people are frustrated with that. My cohort is not very pleased with that fact.
Julie, I don't question.
My understanding though wasn't really going to expand the amount of children that could come in there. It was very little on the expansion of.
It's not as drastic as I think we would like, but I think our sense was why it's good. It's not perfect. What is the phrase? Turning down the good in favor of.
Don't like the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Exactly.
But it also provides infant care, which nobody is doing now. So there's a
Reed
whole
area
new
provides
level.
under what is it, 18-month?
Yep.
Under 18-month care, and so now they will be the only game in town that will be providing, I think, between 4 and 8 spaces from 6 weeks on.
And I think in terms of bringing people into the community,
It's essential.
Yeah, we are looking for people to move here. We are hoping that people enroll their children in our schools.
And we're hoping to have people who work.
All right.
And if you work, you need childcare.
Exactly.
Comments?
I think
Mr.
you're
Spector
getting
has a
that.
comment or a question?
What is the growth? You mentioned that the growth isn't it. How many additional spots would
Do you
this
have
open?
that in?
I'd
Just
have to look
roughly.
it up.
I have 7 in my mind for some reason. I don't know why.
I think
I
it's
feel like
something
you're
like
about
6 or
right.
7 children,
Yeah.
but then the infant care. The problem is that legally they need 1 adult per, I think, like 2 or 3 infants if you're going under 18 months.
6 or 7
So-
additional kids would be enrolled, is that what you're saying?
Yes, plus 4 to 8 infants,
Okay, so-
which is as of now does not exist in this town. There
The order
is
of
no
magnitude, that's
place.
fine.
Well, it says here that our current location, new facility will allow us to double our current 18-month 2-year-olds and our 2 to 3-year-old classrooms. So they'll be doubling whatever they have now, as well as providing this infant care. And I could go through, I'm just looking at the very
It's not
first
a giant
paragraph. so-
operation, but I don't know that a giant operation would exist in this town, period. And I don't know that a giant operation wouldn't be under attended.
They're a for-profit
I think
business, right?
Good.
No,
No,
nonprofit.
they're nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
So they're doing their own fundraising on
Yep.
top of
Yep.
it.
So there might be 2 ways to think about this, because I think Joe's asking the right questions. I happen to think this is a good idea, but the reason is because there's a framework that I don't want to steal this, as Julia, put it in I asked her, how do you think about this? And here's what she said, that there are 4 things that we might be thinking about. One is jobs, one is education, one is housing, and one is what I'm going to edit yours a little bit, I'm going to call quality of life. And quality of life, and all of those are designed to either get travelers or permanent residents. And this, I think, fits in quality of life, and so that's one way of thinking about it, that it fits into one of those 4 categories. And then the second way to think about it is, this is a one-time expense of $50,000. If we got one family to move in because of 1 extra space, that more than pays for it in terms of the taxes that we would get from an education point of view and so forth. And maybe that's not the right way to calculate it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that by adding, let's say, 10 spaces between the infants and so forth, that we would get 1. And then that 1 pays every year in real estate taxes and all that stuff. So that makes me think that it might not be a trade-off with what we could spend on the vibrant downtown. It might just be a kind of a break-even investment, and then we would move on to spend something on downtown also.
Well, I thank you. What crosses my mind is that I have no doubt that it'd be a successful operation. I'm sure that, there would be a spot for kids that need a place for daycare. But we wrestled when I was on the revitalization committee for months to get $20,000 to hire planners to virtually improve and enhance the look of downtown for all the right reasons. And now $50,000 to make room for 7 kids. Is that,
Well,
and
no, we don't know that it's just 7. I think we should, that's a number that we
10.
should absolutely have, but. if
I mean,
it's-
as an economic development commission, is that the direction that we should be going in?
It's a fair point and hesitation noted. And like the Federal Reserve has to keep interest rates low, but employment high. So you've got some competing interests, and with this, it's a good question. And the fortunate position we're in is the amount of funds we have available that we might be able to do both, or at least be a catalyst for both. So the one question I wanted to have answered, and it's not in the information, is the total budget is how much money for this purchase and renovation of the property?
The first phase of construction fundraising goal is $257,000.
But that's
That's the
still,
first phase.
but it's a much bigger project than that.
Yeah, it's 400,000, if I
Correct.
remember correctly.
So, because you've got the purchase of the property and then the renovation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they have income coming in because parts of the property they're going to rent out, and that will help to fund the mortgage.
Oh, no problem, but I guess in terms of, and I've expressed this, so $50,000 towards the actual purchase and renovation of the project. If we think about it in that context, I think we're talking about a $700,000 to $800,000 project, is that correct?
I think it's approaching
It's
a
like
million.
yeah.
Not quite,
Yeah.
but I think it's approaching that.
I'm looking at their numbers here that they submitted in their original application. Their fundraising goal for their Phase 1 and Phase 2 is $400,000. That does not include the purchase price of $350,000. So
Okay.
that's
So I think
420.
that's correct. As I remember, the 400,000 was going to go towards renovations,
Yeah.
energy efficiency, upgrade, solar, and that sort of stuff. Didn't include the purchase of the property.
So that's what we were talking about, is $50,000 towards securing that is actually a small percentage of the total budget. I don't mean to diminish that it's not, that it's still a large amount of money. A second question I have is that it mentions sonotubes in the proposal. Is that sonotubes for solar panels, or is that sonotubes for something else? Because I was hoping they weren't going to erect solar panels on the sliding hill.
That's a very good question.
I don't, I can't say this with any actual authority. I have no idea, but I don't think it's on the sledding hill. And the reason I say that is because they were very excited about having access, like full-time, year-round access to the sledding hill. And I can't imagine that the preschool would do anything to encumber that.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, in a separate conversation I had with Melina in passing, I was like, "You going to keep the sledding hill open?" And she said, "Yes," and then sonotubes. So I got confused,
yeah.
and so I just
It's a good
wanted to make
question.
sure that
Well,
it's
yeah.
fantastic to secure permanent access to the sledding hill, which is a community asset.
I don't know. I mean, it
It's
belongs to
private.
that property.
It would also, I mean, the
Or
solar.
that-
I think
So
the
they
solar-
endure the liability.
Well,
Yeah, that's a whole
Yeah.
different matter. I have a question for you. Can we give a grant and ask for matching dollars from a private source?
we can make
Or
this
say,
condition
make it a
upon them
condition
achieving
upon
their
it.
other fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I think we really, on a private foundation, I think we should help be a motivator.
yes,
For
I
this,
don't
so.
think they
Well,
can.
Courtney, they're going to do that anyway. They're asking you for 50,000 towards their total fundraising of 400,000 plus. So they're going to take your money and multiply it by 8.
Well, the point is that we don't necessarily want the check to be dispersed before they have any funds, so without actually being able to realize the project.
Yeah, we could take
That's-
on a part of
that's
that
the question.
responsibility.
Right. We want to make sure that the other
which
funds
is
are
a-
received before we
Sure.
actually.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
your commitment gets the fundraising started.
Right.
Yes, and
It's
well, and
budget.
this is how we arrived at $50,000. Keep in mind that they had applied for $150,000, which would have really jump-started it. But we wanted to come up with a number that would be both able to jumpstart fundraising and demonstrate the EDC and by extension the town's commitment to bringing young families into its midst, and but also not be such an enormous chunk of their fundraising. We didn't want to be seen as the only source or the primary source of funding for the project. So that's the number that we settled on, that as being with them. I mean, we consulted with them, but we also had conversations on our own and came up with that number as a good, a solid number.
You know, a couple of things. Keep in mind that this is about 20% of our total annual revenue. So it's a pretty big number from a percentage standpoint. But if we have a budget, if we approve our budget the way we do from an administrative standpoint, from our grant money, it's going to be a very large percentage of it. So something to keep in mind when we go through grants is that when we go through requests for grants is that we should really think about what's going to have the largest impact. If we were able to look at all the projects for the year and just do our grants from that, always think of every project, whether this particular one is one of those, especially when it's on a larger scale.
It's a
So
great
just a thought.
point, and I think the big thing that we were thinking about was that we don't, right now we're not getting the kind of grant proposals that are spearheaded by private organizations that are determined to succeed without our super oversight, which we don't necessarily have the resources to provide.
Right.
And we're getting a lot of grant proposals for low sums of money that are really
Right.
important, excellent community things, but that don't really have the scope to change the community the way we would like to see it
Yeah, I think
pushed
we've
forward.
identified a lot of those. Yeah.
And we thought that this was a good first step. It's a organization that is nonprofit. It has existed in the community for a very long time, therefore has a proven track record of success.
Yep.
It will impact and benefit the demographic that we have talked a lot about trying to attract. And it will provide employment and provide tax revenue, has the potential to provide, as John aptly pointed out, tax revenue for the town, thereby increasing our pot yet again.
Sure.
So we thought that it was a really good, both high impact and high quality proposal.
Yeah, I can tell you just from one particular large employer in town that it's a discussion a lot about whether that employer should, supply childcare and provide, big discussion, and hopefully someday it'll be a reality. And even that discussion's been somebody like them, maybe it is an outshoot of theirs to manage.
Sure.
And becomes
Yes,
part
absolutely.
of all that, and maybe other employers can also work through them and,
The point is they
and
can't do
create
that in
one
the
model.
existing space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So
Other places have spaces that maybe there's outshoots of that same thing, so you can start the ball rolling, so to say.
Okay, I know we have a comment on there before we open it up to some other comments. Right, hold on. Is there any other question you have specifically for Julie on this?
I'm sorry. I'm struggling with it,
Yep.
and it's simply because, and I know you're going to cover it soon, probably in the next item. We've had
Definitely the next item.
empty stores downtown. Have been empty since the commission has been formed, and we really haven't sunk our teeth into that. We've gone around the peripheral edges of it, and we'll get into it again, I'm sure. And now we want to talk about a daycare center, and I'm saying, is it really the wise use of our money? And and not that it's not a
I
good
don't think it
project,
has to
not
be
that it has
either or.
good merit, and it's, it will have a positive effect, but I'm questioning which would have the greater effect.
That's
That's what I'm trying to
It's a
say.
great question, and we can only, yes, there are some things we can control and some things we
Yeah.
can't. Ray, you said had a
Yeah,
question.
I'm just curious, is there any provisions for this daycare center to help some of the low-income families that are already here and
Yes.
working?
Yeah. They, because they're nonprofit, their rates are low and pegged to minimum, like a low, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was one of the things that I looked at and was very, very impressed by.
I believe it's in terms of the star rating by the state, there are 4 stars or are they 5 stars? I can't remember in terms of the quality rating of Rainbow Preschool. So they do qualify for pre-K financing as well, funding from the education system.
Yeah.
So anybody remember if they're 4 stars or 5 stars?
You can see, and I know.
It's one or the other. So on a scale of 1 to 5. So
It's a really good question, Ray, and yes.
Unpaid, by the way, just a question, are they paid, all paid staff or some volunteer staff?
But they have an active board. I mean, the board is the one that's running this
Right.
project.
So the motion on the table is to approve $50,000 grant as requested by the Rainbow Preschool, and to make that contingent upon receipt of other grant funds. So we didn't say how much of the funds, correct? Is that sufficient detail to put a bumper around it to your satisfaction?
Well, at least matching, right?
At least matching.
Yeah, so
I think that's fair. They have to match
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to do that anyway.
Yeah.
They'll be
That's
able
great.
to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
If
probably have already done
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, is that, do you have the motion then, Sally?
So the motion is for $50,000, but they need to show matching funds before any EDC funds are dispersed.
Dispersed, right?
I second.
And that was Julia's motion.
Julie's
that was my
motion.
motion.
I think,
Just wait for it, you got another one coming down the pipe.
I think John already seconded it, but.
Oh, really? Oh,
but-
sorry.
But the
Sorry.
enthusiasm was good.
I like
I think we're just voting, right?
it.
Yeah. Any further discussion on it?
Can we get you more popcorn?
No, because Julia wants all of that.
Seeing no further
I told
discussion, we'll bring the motion to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. John, okay, nice job.
Second initiative.
Second initiative.
Joe, this one's for you.
No? Can we go
All
along?
right, we are going to be asking for an approval of up to $20,000 annually. We have
Annually?
yes. So our plan, let me read this to you, what we are hoping to send out along the medias.
All these.
We are hoping to announce the EDC's Storefront Incentive Grant, and I will read this to you. The EDC's new storefront initiative is intended to provide incentives for residents and new one-of-a-kind businesses to come into our community while addressing the vacancy issue in downtown Woodstock. Pre-approval is constituted by meeting the below criteria. Grantees will receive a first month rent upon submission of a signed year-long lease, the second month after 6 months of operation. Here are the details.
I'm listening.
Contingent, so the idea is that anyone opening up a new business in any vacant storefront can send in their lease and send in a year-long lease and receive a first month's rent, a check to cover the first month's rent. There are conditions here, but I'll get into that in a second. And then after 6 months of successful operation, they'll receive a second month's rent. So it's contingent on a year-long lease on a storefront space that is visible from the street in Woodstock's meter zone. The storefront must have been empty for 6 months. We are asking for up to $20,000 a year. If it is in excess of that sum, which would be wonderful, we will submit before the committee again. It will be for 2 months' rent. Each business may apply for 2 months' rent per year for a year-long lease, the first year's lease, not to exceed $2.50 per square foot per month. That's to be revisited in a moment, but those are the criteria that are being sent, that we'd like to send out and get moving among word of mouth in the community. It should be it's restricted to no national chains. It cannot be a relocation of an already existing business within the meter zone. And that's it. So let me explain each one of these criteria. The first one is contingent on a year's lease on a storefront space that is visible from the street in Woodstock's meter zone. This is intended to address the exact issue that you're talking about.
What's the issue?
the vacancies, persistent vacancies in downtown Woodstock. The storefront must have been empty for 6 months. If it's normal turnover and we don't see evidence that a landlord is necessarily charging an unfair or what we would call
Unfair.
unfair rent. The idea is that if people don't need help, if they're able to rent the store on their own, that's great. If there's turnover in a space and it's moving quickly, fantastic. But if a space is persistently vacant, that demonstrates that people may need a bit of help to get moving. It's the $250 per square foot per month. Barry did some research and talked to people at a lot of store. He talked to Jeff. I think his research came primarily from Jeff Kahn, who did a survey of store owners in Woodstock and came up with that as a working average. Now that number we want to be revisited. The idea behind pegging a number to that, rather than just saying 2 months rent regardless of whatever it is that we don't want to reward bad behavior on the part of landlords who are overcharging for their space. We want to revisit that number as soon as the trustees have been talking a lot about trying to tackle these bad faith landlords. We're trying to do what we can from our resources. We can't put in place regulations to tackle what these people are doing. We can offer incentives, and then hopefully the storefronts that are being rented by landlords who aren't charging too much will get rented out, at which point it will become very evident that the people who are charging too much, that something needs to be done about them. Hopefully this will light a fire under the effort to actually have some consequences for these people who are charging too much, while also offering a boost to local entrepreneurs who want to get something going in another space. The parameters, no national chains and no relocations, is intended to make sure that that doesn't happen. But also provide some parameters. We want this to be the kind of thing that people we don't want to have to talk about this again. We want to approve this, and then if someone signs a lease and wants to open a business, they send the lease to Sally, and Sally sends them a check. Not Sally, the town. Yeah. So let me explain Barry and I are really excited about this, in part because it ticks off a lot of boxes of what we're consistently talking about. It gets word out about the grants that we are able to provide. Yep. So it provides us really good, for lack of a better term, it's gauche, but PR. It gets the word, it gets people talking about coming to us for funds for really good things, which is exactly what we need. It could stand to impact the vacancy issue, which would be amazing. And if it doesn't, if no one applies for these grants, then it demonstrates to us, it helps us identify what the problem is and how do we tackle it. Mm-hmm. So if no one comes to us in 6 months, then we can go to we can take that information to the select board and the trustees and say, look, this needs to be tackled from a different angle. Mm-hmm. We're clearly trying to do what we can to fix this problem. And it would be great if we. It seems like it would be great. It would be great. Let's get new businesses in town and let's see if it works. The point is that if we get word out and if no one comes to us, then it just helps us identify what the issue is and how do we fix it.
So the recommendation is to allocate $20,000.
Potentially.
Up to $20,000.
Up to $20,000
to fund this.
Fund.
What are you calling the program?
The empty storefront, or either the storefront incentive grant or the EDC.
All right, we need some marketing on that.
We need some Courtney.
Definitely storefront. It's definitely an incentive program, so we've got to.
Storefront incentive program?
Storefront incentive grant.
Great.
Program.
Grant program.
No, we don't want to.
Can we talk about this?
Yes.
Please.
That's the working title. So as long as we understand what we're talking about.
Then we can refine.
All right, so
later on.
that's the proposal on the table.
Yep.
We don't have a motion yet, but we have discussion.
Let's have discussion.
I got 5 questions.
That's
Yeah,
yours.
I have a couple questions.
Let's hear it.
I love this very much, and I agree that on one hand, I think, okay, sure, we could allocate that money, and even if it wasn't used, then you're right, it helps to identify things. I'm concerned that the only building that might fall, or I'm concerned that none of the empty storefronts that exist right now fall within that 250. I don't know if they do, but if they do, I'm pretty sure Bentley's doesn't, right? And that's two of the, that's Procopio and the old Vermont Flannel. So Artemis, I don't remember what their numbers are, but I worry that,
$4,000 a month.
what was it?
$4,000 a month.
4,000 a month. So I don't know what that is per square footage,
Yeah.
but I'm concerned that it might not.
It might not have an impact.
Not very many stores may qualify, but that being said, again, it helps identify a problem.
Wait, pause.
And
So they qualify no
okay.
matter what. First of all, anyone, if there's a business that wants to rent those spaces and receive 2 months up to $250, they get it no matter what.
Oh, I misunderstood.
No,
I
sorry.
get it.
If it's more than
Okay.
that, it subsidizes their rent for those 2 months. So it's-
I get what you're saying.
They'll get a check from us no matter what if they want it.
Up to 250.
But it's up
So
to
if they're paying
$250.
$5 a square foot,
Exactly.
then they're on the hook for the extra $250.
That's their business.
Okay.
If they're up for it,
Thank you.
that's their issue.
That makes sense.
And they're
Okay.
insane if they do that.
Yes.
Anyway.
Right.
Well, and let
exactly.
me also mention, the one thing that I failed to mention was that we also think that this will help us. Barry is planning on calling, making it known to the
Bentley guy.
to anyone who owns an empty storefront that we are really excited to get people into their stores, to get those vacancies filled, and that we're really hoping that they'll work with us on it. That we're putting our money where our mouths are.
Okay,
And it would
is
be-
that the end of your questions?
No, I have, well, so.
There's a bunch.
Well, no, I can, yeah, and I'll just ask one more. Is this for first year only?
First year only.
Okay, I'll move on.
Check.
Next.
So it would be budgeted, would we budget the whole amount as part of the annual thing, or we budget a portion of it and take some risk on that you won't spend it all?
I think we don't know.
No,
All right.
Wanna know?
Well, I think in terms of the way it works with the municipality is that we would set the $20,000. I mean, we could set 10,
Yeah.
but it's just way easier for them to just know that there is a pot of money that has been set aside in this
Sure.
account that they can draw against. We can
As-
always close that account like we've done before.
As an encumbrance is essentially what
It's
it is.
20,000
And-
encumbrance.
And so, I guess one of your points was, are we really committing to all future years? And there's a rule in the legislature, you can't encumber a future legislature.
Got it.
So it's almost like, could we encumber a future EDC by doing this? I don't know, but we could at least put 20 grand on the table now to say, this is important to do.
Got it. With the annual review next.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So then, I don't know if maybe you already mentioned this. Is there a fair market value guide of some sort that the town has?
There's not, and there
Okay.
might, that would also help. There is,
For
there
rents?
is a, pardon?
For rents, you mean?
For rents?
Yeah, I don't
On
think
square
there is.
footage in a town?
No.
Yeah.
No.
There's only what people pay.
No.
What's the
Okay.
traffic will
They are
bear?
all over the place.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah. It's all over
the
the
numbers
place.
that we've seen have been,
So that's $30 a
Vastly.
square foot on an annual basis.
Okay.
That's,
Is curious, Charlie, and you may know this better, is it evident in a lot of other towns like this that are around the state where you've got owners that are taking losses and don't really care and it's affecting certain towns' economy or has completely affected towns' economy?
it's always impossible to know the motivation of property owners.
Oh, no, it's not. Charlie, it's not.
It is. So I would say that the economics of it are that landlords would be motivated to fill their space at a market rent for which they could pay for the purchase of the property. And there are many properties that are owned by people that do not have that same economic motivation.
Yeah.
And so in Vermont, in the state of Vermont, there are probably pockets of that. But it's really difficult to say.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
what, you know.
Tough question.
Yeah.
One of the things I actually kind of like is the fact that we talk about we don't want big chains, but would be nice to have somebody who has a little bit of a diverse portfolio of a business, meaning that, you know, a company that has sure thing to I'm just thinking of other ways to market this and try to get somebody that owns 6 stores.
You had Verizon down here once, Chip. Verizon had a store there once.
Yeah, they did, that's right. But I'm thinking like, you know, somebody has something that is, if they're taking some losses in the early years, they're not just good. That's what happens half the time. You have an independent place, and as soon as they start taking losses, they don't last long at all. So, but somebody who can wait out the 2, 3, 4, 5-year period, whatever it takes.
So the verbiage is no national chains.
Yeah, okay.
So if it's a Vermont chain, if it's a locally
Vermont
owned, yeah, if it's someone that owns a couple of stores,
Maplewoods.
yeah,
Maple Fields.
then fantastic. But if it's, I mean, sure,
I think
we
as we,
wanted
I
to
think
draw
if we become
parameters that.
recruiters at all, something to look at. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's a good question because, you know, what defines national chain? If I have a place in Tahoe and I want to open up a store here, am I national?
Yeah.
So it's odd. I mean, I
Well,
think
it's
we all
like-
know what it is, but
Yeah.
it's not, rather than define it.
So we
read-
thought,
We could look and we could actually do a little bit more research on that and try to tighten that up. Because
the
I
verbiage
agree that
up?
there, yeah, because
That's
I
a-
agree that there are situations where, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if there's a review process or not.
Just the size of the chain. You could say any chain, you know, a chain is defined as more than 10 stores.
a chain as, does that verbiage please everyone?
I'd probably want to think about that a little before we just assign a number.
Sure, totally. No, our goal here is to be as specific as we can, such that people can, such that there's no more. We don't have to have this conversation ever again. And if anyone comes in, signs a lease, it doesn't come before us to be approved. We don't. We think that that's the best, both for the community. That's the best thing that we can do to make it appealing to people. I've spoken with a number of young entrepreneurs in our area who are very intimidated by the EDC and grant applications.
Yeah, scary bunch.
And
So you're
The
putting money out
idea-
there for the taking, that's
Yeah.
easier to get.
that
Charlie, you should stop that.
which is why specificity in these terms is important. So we want to get it right. We don't want to, if we don't all agree right now, then we should wait and rethink about it and approve it at the next meeting. But there's no rush in that regard for us.
Julie, I have a comment. I think this is a good idea. I think this is a good experiment. It's
Yeah, who
really
knows
good. And
whether
so
it
I
will
would
work.
support it for the first year. I think it's important that maybe we can include, I think it's important that we monitor the rents. And so maybe we just have a requirement that they just tell us what the rents are, I mean, you know,
That's
as
a
part of the
great idea.
application.
Great
The
idea.
reason
Yeah.
is that the natural reaction to this, because you see this in New York all the time, in Manhattan, the natural reaction to this is that the landlords will take most of the surplus. They'll just raise the rent.
Yeah.
You know, they'll announce it's not really $12,000 a year, it's really only $10,000 a year because, you know, when in fact it used to be $8,000 and now they've raised it to 12, but they get 2 back from the EDC. That's the rational response to this.
Yeah.
Now, if we have landlords that aren't paying attention, which I think is sort of the accusation, then it might work. But if we find out after a year that what's happening in effect is that the extra money is just going to the landlords and the actual net rent paid by the people is the same, then we would obviously discontinue
Great
it.
idea.
So, but it's worth trying. And
Excellent
I
idea.
think Bob brings up an excellent point. Is it my turn?
Go for it.
Yes, it's your
Okay.
turn.
I think I can't support this, and I never will, because I really feel that, as I've said before, and it was in the minutes, I believe, of last meeting, this is just a short-term solution for a long-term problem. I think we're assuming, and again, Rob brings up an excellent point, we're assuming that these landlords that we have in town, aside from the ones who live in town and have their own businesses in that building, a lot of them from out of town. And in my opinion, just upon my observations, they leave these buildings empty, in disrepair, and need paint jobs, and need awnings, and need all sorts of stuff to make them look decent and more rentable, and they don't do it. To me, that says to me, what they're saying is, I don't care what goes on in your town. I don't care how bad it looks. I don't care about the vacancies. I just don't care. So now we're gonna give them 2 months' rent towards a 6 or a year's lease. If the business folds after 6 months, because they can't make it after the 2 months or 3 months, they've got $8,000 potentially that they wouldn't have had. This does not address the attitude of the landlords. What about your buildings?
I could not agree more. I just don't know what
Okay,
we
wait a
can
minute.
do
Let me finish.
about that.
Let me finish. So, the idea that was floating around, which I could support, is the stick thing. If you leave your store empty for, pick a time, 6 months, 8 months, then you have to pay a penalty.
So the vacancy tax is a great idea. I could not agree more. However, I worry that
Let
in
me
order
finish.
to, sorry.
Now, as far as the disrepair thing, I'd always be in favor, and I always have, and I've had this discussion more than once with Charlie. It's obvious that it's their responsibility to paint their building. It's their responsibility to make it look nice. Their responsibility to repair or replace the awnings. But they're not going to do it. And sit around here and wish that they would isn't going to happen. It just won't. So what do? We sit around and say, oh, well, you know what, they're not going to do it, and it's not our responsibility, so what we'll do instead is we'll give them too much free rent to get started. In a building that doesn't look so good, on a business, in 3 months, they're going to have to pay the full freight again. With a building that doesn't look so hot. I mean, I applaud the effort that's going into this, and I applaud the energy and the thought and the empathy for people who want to start a business. Nobody wants this more than I do. Nobody. But I really feel that this is the wrong approach. I really do.
Okay, so that Joe said his piece. He doesn't like this. Mickey, you had a comment?
I love the idea of a vacancy tax. I do, but I worry that in order to pass some kind of law or legislation or whatever is required in order to make that happen, that's not something that we can just implement. So in order to make that happen, I think that having data behind us that shows what the actual problem is. I think that the arguments against, maybe everyone in this room would agree with the vacancy tax, maybe not. I'm sure that there are people that don't. And so for the people who don't agree with it, the argument is, well, how do you know that that's the problem? How do you know it's the problem that the place is in disrepair or the rent is too high? How do you know it's not just that people just aren't renting, starting new businesses? So this helps solve for some of that and helps answer some questions so that we can boil it down and perhaps get to a place where we can implement something like that, which I do actually think probably needs to be done, but I think it's a long process.
I'd like to make a comment, and that is, I understand Joe's concerns, and as John pointed out, it might encourage bad behavior in terms of raising your rent in order to get that. But there's other things that we have to consider. One is the approach that a new business owner has to have eyes wide open, and that they're signing up for a 12-month lease. And they have to believe that there is a good fundamental reason for them opening a business, and the 2 months free rent isn't going to be the only reason why they do it. So I think the space has to be right for them, the town has to be right. The second thing is, and I know I walk a fine line, with property, it's a free country to do what you want with your property. We may not like it, but we can try to encourage behavior that would incent that property owner to fix it up and make it a vital part of our community. Perhaps the trustees will consider an incentive that'll work. I've always struggled with tax on someone who doesn't keep their property up because then I'm worried about my stairs. My own stairs. So it's an interesting thing about individual rights versus community perception.
I think you're right, Charlie. I think that, what Mika said and what you said, if there were a way to amalgamate those ideas in terms of a vacancy tax, point one. Point two, using that money instead of supplementing rent, what I think would be more effective is going to the landlords and saying, listen, your building needs to be painted. I know you don't want to pay the money for it, but what about if we help you out with that paint job? What about if the paint job is going to cost $10,000, we'll give you $5,000, we'll give you $4,000. Let's try to work that out. Make the building attractive, right? And have a vacancy tax. I think would work more effectively than just going in there and saying, we're going to give you 2 months rent.
So the same kind of incentive, but for the landlord, not for their tenant.
Right.
Or
So,
you can do both.
well, Rob,
We can do both.
wouldn't that encourage or at least have a positive effect on somebody thinking about coming into town with a nice looking building and the rent is reasonable because of the vacancy tax? I'm wondering.
But the only proposal we have before us tonight
Yes.
is this proposal
Right,
for the
you're right.
$20,000 for the storefront rent subsidy. We really need a better working title.
EDC Storefront Incentive Grant Program.
Okay, we still need something that can sell better.
Look, the reality is we don't know if this is going to be, this is a big question mark.
Yeah,
It just helps
sure
us correct more, it helps us correct towards fixing a problem
Yeah,
that
we gotta
we're
figure out
all
how do we communicate.
very aware.
So,
Good plan.
do we move to a motion on this as the recommendation from the Resource Committee? Is this a report or is this a recommendation that requires action?
recommendation.
It's a recommendation. So would you then move to allocate $20,000?
A year.
Subject, just $20,000, not per year, I think,
Yes, that sounds great.
to.
Up to, right?
Up to $20,000 for the EDC, what?
Storefront Incentive Grant Program?
Yes, subject to the terms and conditions as described. Would you move that?
I move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I'd like to ask if we could review it in, say, 6 months.
Absolutely.
As part of it, and specifically look at what you had mentioned in terms of whether or not this is actually helping to promote bad behavior, and I'd almost like to spend just a little bit of time fleshing out whether or not there's something that we can add in here that would solve for that ahead of time, and I don't know what that looks like, so I don't know what that looks like, but I'm a little stuck on that.
Is there a way to?
Say that again.
I'd
review
kind
in
of
6
like
months?
to, well,
Without making any alterations now, but is that?
yeah, so I'm sort of talking out of both sides of my mouth. On one side, I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Can we review it in 6 months? The other side of me is saying, well, just hang on. Is there anything that we can do? Is there anything that we can put in there, some kind of provision that would help solve for that bad behavior on the front end? And I don't know what that looks like. Is that, getting the rents from the landlord? I mean, landlords can raise their rent any time, so, they could say, yeah, it's $8,000 a year, and then, as soon as they find out about the grant program, yeah, they could say, actually, no, it just went up, it has nothing to do with the grant program. So I don't know if there's any way to solve for that. So I think I might just be talking out loud at this point.
Okay.
Wait,
Sorry, I really think I had to just kind of work that through.
I just
I
wonder if
think
there's
there is-
anything missing from it. That's my only.
So wait, first of all, Mika, I think there is a way to solve for that. And
Yeah, what
that's
is it?
Someone on the Economic Resources Committee
Right.
calls each of, at least four of the empty storefronts, and we document right now what is what they're charging, and then we see if after we make this live, that changes. So that's one way to
Right.
check.
Right now.
Right.
By the way,
Yeah.
your marketing piece is kind of, because it shouldn't be storefront. It should be after the person that's applying, so it should be something that's new business, startup, something in that term when we get to the marketing.
Right, so
That
we do need
Yeah.
a little marketing
Yeah.
spin on it.
And again, I'm totally, if we're not ready to make a motion, we should
I think
vote
the
on this
concept, the
next
concept
month.
is understood.
Yeah.
We've got enough information in order to make a decision. There's just some of the verbiage that we don't necessarily have nailed down. We might
Yeah.
not all agree with the proposal, but I think the proposal is well understood. Is that?
Yeah.
everybody?
Mhm.
All right.
Okay,
Yes.
Coach?
So with that, is there any further points to make before you vote? Or information you need?
You want to talk out loud a little more?
So all
It's
those,
for the offer, but
all
no,
those in
sure.
favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, the motion carries. Well, you just spent 70 grand, what else are you gonna do?
I mean, I'm gonna ask for
About to
more.
bleed.
Just wait, just
No,
wait.
that's-
No, I'm
Now,
not
those,
asking
those
for any
are,
more.
those are very worthy endeavors to see what we can do.
These are
on
just,
economic
they're
development.
topics that we have been talking and talking about on so many
We're in
different
a
levels,
drug
and
trade.
we're very excited
And,
to
and
tackle.
And they're
some of
potential
that.
solutions,
Yeah.
and it's great.
we know that those
How
are
much
not
more
the
grant money do
only
we have?
tools, we know that
year?
those are not the only tools in the toolbox.
$390,000?
Right.
Wow, within the budget year.
Okay,
We could go back to the big bets list
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
talked about 2 months ago.
So,
Yes.
that's that.
so you have housing as a
Yes,
third.
that's a quick
item.
I will just update you, the survey went out, we've had over 325 responses. So it's looking
fantastic.
good. And our consultant said a lot of them have comments on them. So we'll get to see what people are saying. They expect that we will reach 500 in the next couple of weeks, and when we get to that point, we'll close it down. And hopefully we'll get a report. I mean, Kennedy Advisors had done the initial report already. The housing study the survey will fill in some of those final questions, so they're moving. So if anybody out there hasn't filled in their survey yet, I don't know if we have it on the town website, but we'll make sure it gets out there.
Oh, my
Look on the listserv, and if anybody here hasn't filled out the survey yet, please do.
I'm gonna do it tomorrow.
Not only that, I got my $3 ice cream,
Oh, you did?
which I didn't need. I got it and enjoyed it.
Everybody needs ice cream. Okay, civic revitalization.
Actually, can I just say one more thing on the economic resources, and Julia, you didn't say that, but our next grant cycle, just to remind folks, is September 28th is when grants are due, and there is another grant writing workshop on the 25th. I
Thank you.
just said the 25th.
27th, wasn't it? Did I read it wrong?
The 25th.
25th.
And if anyone will join me, that would be fantastic.
You remind me a little bit earlier than you the last time, huh?
Grant workshop?
The grant writing workshop
Yeah,
at the
grant
Optimist
workshop.
Center.
Yeah.
On September 25th.
Yeah, okay, I'll put it in my calendar.
Okay, thank you. Very productive, ladies and gents. Civic revitalization, item number C on updates.
Civic revitalization. Since we met last, Du Bois and King, who is the firm that we're working with on the project, they came to us with an existing conditions report that we then took and read and met with members of the trustees and the select board and representatives from the EDC as well. We all met to discuss the existing conditions report, which is basically, all of the information that Du Bois and King has pulled together from the town as to date. And so using that existing conditions report, we are intending to go back to the public with another public outreach meeting and present some possible solutions, present some of the problems that we see in the town, whether it's crosswalks or sidewalks or trash cans or whatever they are, present some of the problems, present some solutions, present some choices, present some questions. It's a whole big presentation, or it's not really a presentation. It's it's an update to the public for whoever wants it. And that hasn't happened yet. So what's going to happen next is that same group of people, and anyone else that wants to be involved, but that same group of people that met last time to discuss the existing conditions report, I'm going to send them a draft of what I hope to do for the public outreach, for next public outreach meeting, and see where that falls for everybody. Does it make sense? Does it seem like that's what we want to move forward with for the next public outreach. And if it does, then we can schedule it and make it happen.
So, great. Any idea what's, and I'm sorry if I missed the
No,
schedule.
no.
So what are you thinking about a schedule for the next public outreach in terms of, here are some ideas that address the solutions or the problems that were
Yeah.
identified?
So she just sent me the draft for the next outreach meeting just tonight. So my goal is to send that out to the group when we leave here, and then start to get some feedback from everybody. And then if everybody's in agreement that, or if we can come to some kind of an agreement, then ideally we could have the next public outreach meeting sometime in the end of October.
Okay, so between now and the end of, or our
I think that
next
was her.
EDC, between now and the next EDC meeting, do you anticipate any activities to happen? You will.
Besides the next what will hopefully be a meeting, whether it's an in-person or online, but some kind of meeting of the minds regarding the public outreach agenda.
Okay, to set the agenda. For
Yes,
next
to
one.
set the
Okay.
agenda for the next
All
one.
right.
So, and, hopefully a meeting set date for that
Okay.
by the next EDC meeting, yes.
Terrific.
Mhm.
Comments for economic revitalization? Thoughts?
It's exciting.
Dirty jokes. All right, terrific. Thank you. We are on item D, and it's 8:20. It's 8:30, really. So we're trying to get it in that window. So I am by default reporting for the Recreation Committee because our other members who were actually involved in the meeting are not here today. So we did have a follow-up meeting to discuss the River Loop Trail, and I think Sally's comments captured some of that information. A group of commission members went out and actually walked the proposed River Loop Trail that had been proposed back in 2000, I'm thinking that report was from, 2000?
Yep,
2000, with some ideas of where the River Loop Trail may go, and this is extending from the Riverside Park, and it's not Riverside Park, what are we calling it? What is it?
End Park.
East End Park, is that the name of it? East End Park all the way down, past Bailey's Meadows and.
Which one is Bailey's Meadows?
Where the Apples and Crafts Fair is.
Yes, okay.
Yes, and then continuing on through the field along both the bank of the Ottaquechee River and also then coming back on the railroad bed that is there existing. If you recall, David Simmons, who is the manager of Billings Farm, had checked with the farm manager and they didn't see a conflict with their farm operations, so it kind of gave us an encouraging nod to say, go ahead, discuss it further. Phil Swanson, in discussing the current application of biosolids to those fields, which is a necessary part of our sewage treatment process, said that it's still important for the town to do that, but the areas that we had suggested to him did not conflict with that, but subject to also review of a map of the trail that has not been done as of yet. Tom Weschler is remaining active with this group, and he is putting together a list of all the property owners, and he was going to be doing that last couple of weeks, to make sure that all the adjoining property owners and people that might have an opinion on it because they can see the River Loop Trail or that kind of stuff would be able to weigh in before actually bringing it to the body here. So that I think is really where we stand now. So the map hasn't been finalized yet, but I'm encouraged. The group went out and measured it, and it was 3.9 miles for a proposed path. That would be a gravel-based path, recreation, not primarily transportation. The idea was to really update the existing proposal from 2000. Sally also went and checked out the availability of municipal grants, and that deadline is in October 1st, I believe. And that puts a lot of pressure on us to try to come up with something new for that date for a planning grant. But the idea was can we get an estimate of what this revised trail would cost, and can we engage a consultant to do that and apply for some municipal planning grants? And accordingly, the Planning Commission was not excited that it didn't encompass the entire bicycle or pedestrian design for the whole town, but was willing to accept that this is worth pursuing. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah, a little bit more, I think.
It was a little bit more strongly worded that they think that the EDC should be looking at a more of a municipal bicycle plan and maybe focusing on the route to the high school as opposed to a purely recreational route.
And it was a bit of a
Jill was there.
question as well of, are we missing an opportunity for a municipal grant that could take a bigger look than just this one trail?
So within this, I guess it's a good question because there's always been a discussion about a bike path out to the high school. So the question is that for really transportation for the high school students? Is that a recreation path, or what purpose does it serve? So that was, we know what this purpose is purely recreation, it's not for transportation. So we weren't, when we had our deliberations about where we wanted to focus, we thought that we could focus on something that was scalable.
And I think that was appreciated. It was more that, okay, great, that's really obvious, great. But then as soon as you do that, aren't we all going to be asking the questions about, okay, so what's the next one? What's the next one? So if we're going to get a grant, should we be asking the grant to look a bit bigger, even if you're really going to do the recreational trail first and not bite off the others? But don't you want to have a bigger look if there's grant money to be had?
I think a plan that, if you have a whole plan, all those things together, and then figure out what can be knocked off one at a time, and you do your baby steps, you're getting there, and which do you choose first, and go that way. So you have a master plan, at the very least. Everybody's satisfied that there's a plan out there, but then you're gonna have to make your first choice, which is gonna be the hardest choice. So, but I like the idea of having that, all those paths, one big master plan.
So the one, and this municipal planning grant sort of bogs things up a little bit because it's due October 1st. The application is due. The granting is up to, I think, 25,000, so it's not a big chunk of money. The idea was that EDC funds might be used to leverage and to say if the EDC provided some funding, it could raise our application up because they are a competitive process to get these, that if we had some funding. My feeling at this point is the EDC would have to, at this meeting right now, sort of say, okay, we're going to support a municipal planning grant, and we would be willing to commit $5,000 or $10,000 or something like that toward that application. If we're talking about just the bike path that the recreation group has been talking about, that's a fairly simple project. Once we expand it to sort of much more community-oriented, I think I don't have a sense that that's something that can be done between now and October 1st, as much as I would really like it to be done. So I'm just putting this out there that it may be just too short a time period to even do, and whether the commission is willing to sort of commit some funds to it or not.
Yeah, because our goal at that time was to look at the recreational assets and that committee.
Right,
and
that's
that
what
was,
the name of the committee is.
Right, and to look at that. And what I think the group was suggesting is take a larger view of all of the different transportation-related or recreation paths. And it's a good question, and it's not without merit, saying how does this fit within the whole thing.
Right. Can I add something? I think it also comes about because I've been sitting in Soulfully Good on Montvert recently and seeing people pedal down Route 4 past me in bikes, having no idea of the traffic. So if you build a recreational asset all the way downtown, how are people going to get there?
Well, there is a parking lot right there, and that is the idea.
So-
there is existing parking spaces.
So they're going to rent the bike from the inn, put it on a car and drive to the East End?
I think our idea was not necessarily renting it from the inn. That the Stowe Bike Path, for instance, is very successful in attracting people. And after they built it, that's when bike rental places sprouted up along the bike path. They didn't exist before then, so people traveled to the path to actually go and take their kids out the path. Yeah.
Eastburg had the same result.
Right. So with that, I mean, the nature of Route 4 is really difficult to solve by itself, which is a much larger fish than I think we can fry on our own. That's a regional transportation issue, that's a town transportation issue. So we're looking at just that one recreation asset.
Yeah, and part of that too, we're gonna, is it 2021 or 22, where you're gonna be ripping up Route 4?
Right.
So.
2020.
20.
Right around the
20?
corner.
2020.
Oh, I thought it was
is the
further
promise.
out, that's better.
No, the promise is
Not even-
2020, but it's not a sure promise.
But anyway, I mean, everything's got to be kind of probably worked around those things if you're looking at those pathways. But assuming, does that involve doing new sidewalks or just curves and pavement? Any idea?
Typically, I don't know.
No.
I was going to
Typically,
make
it's
something
not
up.
much more than that.
Based on past experience, they address the road first,
Yeah.
and
But
any other.
sidewalks are.
I just wonder if it's an opportunity for those other grants at that time along with whatever we can help motivate those grants with.
So the issue is always, we should be doing something bigger first. And this first report came out in 2000. There have been many since then. And there was actually a comprehensive bike pedestrian walkway study done in 2003.
Right around that time, yeah.
Yeah, and nothing's happened with that. And so it's a question about, do you try to boil the ocean or just try to heat up the pot that we can boil now? So it's a point well taken, is that we should be still pursuing other things. I was at a meeting earlier today with the Southern Windsor County Regional Planning Commission talking about bike routes throughout Windsor County and what to publish on a map as to be a great resource for tourism and also just general recreation. So there are some other projects that are happening at the same time to try to promote that, but this was a different deal.
Maybe one thing we could do as a tactic, and I don't know if this works with the state government, is not to fund this at the EDC, because we've just spent $70,000 and it feels like it's premature. I mean, we don't have enough information to pick them out, but to submit a proposal anyway and get feedback on the proposal. If we're lucky to win a grant, great. If we're not, this will wait for, it sounds like it's an annual process.
Yeah.
Right, we'd certainly have the time to do this next year, and we would have gotten some feedback the first time.
So the point is that the planning grant is due October 1st. And is the question, will the EDC be asked to fund this study at some point in the future if we don't go for the planning grant? So that's sort of why, I mean, maybe John's solution, just go ahead and apply for the planning grant, would work.
Well, I mean, it would give us some information.
Right,
They would
right.
say it's a terrible idea or something. We at least know then we are going to have to pay for the whole thing.
Right, right.
Or they might say,
I mean, because if we don't go for the planning grant now, the EDC is going to probably be asked to spend the money the complete money for this study.
So and that varied from when it was first done was $2,000, then it was 30 grand.
The one he did in 2000, he said he did it for $2,500, and now, but he pulled it out, and the approval process and the permitting process is so much more complicated than it was, that it is essentially like doing a new study. So even though the Riverwalk study was done in 2000 and it's still there, the whole process of permitting is just very different than it was 18 years ago.
So if we were to pursue John's suggestion, and I don't think, our committee is not ready to actually put something on the table, I don't think at this point, but it would require the EDC to actually commit funds or to recommend to the select board to commit funds, is that correct? Right now, before October 1st deadline?
I would have to look that up, whether the planning studies require any matching funds, I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Or could we make the application and say, oh, and if they approve it, then they say you've got to match it by X amount, and we say, well, we don't have it, we don't have approval for it, and then we take it to the select board.
Yeah.
Can we pursue B?
So all grants require a local cash match of 10%.
Okay.
And the maximum amount is $22,000.
So would we just say right now, if we were to get that grant, are we prepared to commit to a 10%?
Right.
And do we have an idea of what that number would look like?
Well, we could just apply for the maximum grant and see what we can get for that
And
number.
what is the maximum?
It's $22,000.
22. Great.
So
we
is
have to
this
pay $2,200.
Yes.
So
I think we could
I'm
commit to
prepared to commit to that.
I like
Such
the
that-
idea, though, that you put skin in the game to motivate the winning of that grant.
Say that again?
Put skin in the game to motivate the winning of that grant. I like that idea.
Right, right. But I have to admit, we're working on not a lot of information right now. So
Yeah.
it's very minimal. We did discuss it at the planning commission. Like I said, they kind of grudgingly said approve it. They weren't happy about it because they wanted to see this other thing. And we still have to go to the select board and get them to sign off on it. So typically these municipal planning grants come from the planning and zoning office. So this time it's really coming more from this recreation group just because it lines up with what we're doing right now, and it
So
seems.
you're asking us to commit money right now to something that we don't have a lot of information about right now?
No, but only if it were to be won.
Well, I know,
If
but
this
if we
stayed-
get it,
I know.
it's $22,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the upside is
Well,
that
you
$2,000
could also
could
vote
then- would then turn into
to
22.
say, if
It would
we get
only
the
be
grant,
granted
we will
if
provide
it
$2,200.
was $2,200.
Right.
Or if it was.
There is that. If we obtain the grant, then you commit the town to $2,250. Yes.
$2,500.
2,250.
Oh,
Because
2,000.
the maximum is $2,250, so up to $2,250. So contingent upon approval by the state for $22,500.
Oh.
Right. So that's what
Not a lot of
look
money.
like.
No.
So there's no bad
And it
outcome,
only goes out-
basically.
Yeah,
if
there's
we
no
think
bad
about
outcome.
There's no bad
Same.
outcome except,
Yeah.
right.
And we don't
There's no
even have to
bad
ask the select board
Yeah.
for money. really,
No,
right now.
it's
So let's-
it's cheap
yeah.
money.
Why don't, is the motion required?
Yes.
I move to approve application,
Of up to $2,250,
yes,
provided the.
provided that the municipal planning grant for $22,000.
Contingent upon.
Contingent upon the receipt of the municipal planning grant for $22,000.
Second.
That's a motion and it's been seconded.
Discussion.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Great.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the last order of business before we get into other business. Is there any other business that we have this evening?
Football game,
Any new business? I think what I wanted to bring up is we've had some conversations about the use of this phone. And I think we should, as a group, prepare for next meeting and to be able to decide whether or not the Economic Development Commission wants to conduct meetings but with a telephone for remote participants. The town has made an investment in this technology. When it works well. When it doesn't, it works very poorly. And we've had both experiences. So
Is it just the person on the other phone, not this?
I don't know. We might need a tutorial for everyone who actually participates.
Our problem is when we use them at the end.
There's somebody on the other end.
Other than they're on a cell phone and it's not, when they're not in a more remote area, all sorts of reasons. They're in a car, that's never good.
In a bar.
Yeah, but even if
In a
you're
bar.
sitting
In a
in
bar.
even if you're sitting in one place with all your bars, there's something. It's not. You can't completely hear everybody at the table.
Right.
It's not ideal. John has offered to bring some technology to the EDC and some know-how. So we should have that conversation after.
Maybe we just pick one meeting and just test it.
Yeah,
And just say it's only for one meeting if we know that there are going to be some people remote, and then we see what happens.
that's great.
And then I just want to put into that, this is less than a year old, so if we're saying that's not effective, let's return it.
Yeah. Sure. So the other business that we haven't discussed, and I don't know any updates, is about the old Pie Restaurant building. I don't know what else to call it, but progress has been substantial.
Yeah.
And so we really want to thank the owners of the property for removing what in other communities would be standing for a long, long time.
Yep.
So that's a tremendous commitment. So it's great to see that happening. What happens next, we don't know.
Do we have a point of view as an EDC about, well, presumably not, since no one planned that the building would burn down. as to whether or not we would like to see another building built or not, and if so, whether it should be retail or not, because one way to solve the empty storefronts is to have fewer storefronts.
Just calling them all out.
I'm not
mean, just
suggesting we
comment
burn any
like that.
more down, but, no, but seriously, if supply and demand, if you
Part of,
eliminated
you're
basically two
you're on the
storefronts.
beautification committee, right?
No, I'm not. But, yeah, I
this is a
would
one-
only allow one coffee shop in town.
No, but I'm saying it's a one-time opportunity. I don't know even that we could have influence over it or whether we should, but at least it's just something in the spirit of thinking about for future discussions. Is this something that we want to engage in even or not? I don't know the answer, but it strikes me that it's a unique.
And that's sort of a question I have, is do we know who the players are at this point that they can be approached and ask that question, whether they are willing to have some public input on what happens next?
The players are Buckingham Partners, Inc., 57 East West, 757 West 57th Street, 7th floor, New York, 10019.
Yes, but their local agent are
Is
the people,
Liza.
Liza and Susan as well, so I mean, between those two. But I guess that's my question is, I know they talked to Phil about demolition and they've talked to other things, so there has been a process, but I don't know where we as a community stand in providing that input. And I think that's a really good question. It would be.
It's, again, a private landowner, so it
Right,
comes back
exactly.
to what is their intent.
Right.
And I don't think they were clear, they wanted to take care of this demolition, get through that, and then figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, if they have other ideas, would they be willing to participate in the discussion? That's a good question. So we should invite
Oh, that would be great.
their representatives to actually have that discussion with the Economic Development Commission. It's like,
Yeah.
we're really,
That's great.
we're really interested.
If I may
in what you're
voice an
doing.
opinion, I think the best thing that could happen in this community is somebody to put up a really nice building there. And I think it would spark maybe a renaissance of sorts in town. I mean, if they had a really nice building there and people eager to rent space, I can't see it having anything other than a positive effect on the whole downtown district. Really, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
So let's invite the representatives of the owners or the owners themselves and we'll see if we can have a conversation with them.
Do you want to invite them to a meeting or?
Yeah, to the next
Yeah.
meeting, right?
And see what they're comfortable
Yeah.
with. Let's see what they're comfortable with. Yeah, if you can, yeah, that'd be great. Are they comfortable in coming and being on camera? Would they like to have a separate conversation that's not public? Is this more appropriate with the select board, with the trustees? I don't know, but we have an interest in planning and implementing sustainable economic development, so it seems to be what our charge is, right?
Okay, I will contact them.
Like Joe's thought, the same thing as yours with the bike path is you start building it, motivates other things starting to flow from it.
I do. I really
Interesting
believe that.
thought.
I mean, I, in my opinion, in my experience, having owned 5 restaurants, what generates good business is having good businesses around you.
Yes.
It always does. Always does. Nothing better. I've got 2 other massage therapists on my floor. They're both great. And I'm doing fine. I mean, it's just good business will generate more good business all the time, in my opinion.
Terrific, thank you. Is there any other new business before the body tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to
Second.
adjourn, seconded. All is not debatable. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.